pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our mission is to prepare and support all students within a culture of excellence, to do their best and to be their best, so that each can be a successful, contributing citizen, able to adapt to change and to successfully respond to the future. So our first order of business is public participation. Do we have anybody here for public participation? Okay, I recognize Jess back there. Sure. And you might want to speak over by one of the microphones so you can hear at home.
My name's Jess Smith. I'm here tonight to represent the Elm Street School Parent-Teacher Organization. We've had an issue recently that I wanted to bring to the board's attention, so hopefully you can help me to resolve it. The goal of our parent-teacher organization is to fundraise primarily for Elm Street School to support programs that aren't funded by the RSU. We also try to run fun events, educational events for students and families to go to. Many of our events are free at no cost to students and families to participate in. We also help support RSU programs when asked. We recently donated to the Ferry Beach program to help that happen this year. That was just a month or so ago. We recently had an issue in September regarding communication for a fundraiser that we were planning, a community event that was held at the high school here, the Harlem Wizards game, which is a big fundraiser for our group. We were not allowed to advertise this to the other elementary schools, and that was surprising to us because we have done that successfully in the past, meaning we photocopy the flyers, deliver them to the schools, and then the schools send them home in the Friday or the Wednesday folders, how they communicate with parents there. We weren't able to use the RSU email system to send a blast, which is okay, but the flyers thing really kind of caught us off guard because that has been widely used by other community groups for sports and other nonprofit entities to communicate what they're doing, you know, to our whole community here. We feel that the goal of the strategic plan, I was here with most of you when we made that plan, right? That was a lot of hard work. Section C of the plan, if you read it, it starts on page 13. It talks about goals, specific goals to build community collaboration and communication. And I know we're a little low tech talking about photocopying flyers and handing them out, but that's what works, right? That's how people know what's going on in the community. So what I'm here for tonight is to formally ask the board to develop a policy regarding communications. So it's just not at one individual or any individual's discretion whether or not to communicate. If we have a good event that's worthy of everyone knowing about it, that there's a process and a means, you know, to make that happen. The event that I'd like to use as an example is something that our PTO is working on right now. It's a food drive. So if you're not familiar, we have a program called ManaFed in our community. They send backpacks full of food home with students that have been identified as needing that type of support. This year, we have 48 students being supported by this program. 6 are homeless right now. They get backpacks full of food every weekend. The other 42 get them every other week. So we feel that this is a really important program. That program currently moved from PCS to Elm Street School. We have a big room and there's not a lot of food in it. We feel like this is an important event. We've scheduled a food drive for October 25th. So I'm here tonight to request permission now to flyer all the students in all the schools so that everyone is aware. We're going to be collecting food at Future Foods in Mechanic Falls, Family Dollar in Poland, and the Minot Country Store in Minot. So all 3 towns, trying to get everyone to rally behind this very important issue. So I'd like that. Any questions?
I think maybe Tina would like to, I think, respond to your request. So.
Yeah, I would just like, I don't know if this is going to come forward, just like to thank Jess for coming. We've been in communication multiple times on this issue, and also the PTOs and the community club for all of our schools, our sports Boosters program is also an organization that is doing great things for our school department. So I want you to know that we do appreciate that work, and we think the requests for advertising is important, but we have a couple of issues that we're really trying to address. So I've been working with the administrative team over the last month to try to find a solution that allows us to support and advertise the events going on without causing undue level of work for our staff. One of the things that I'm finding is that capacity is a problem. So we have a lot of requests to put out phone bursts to families, our entire faculty and also parents about fundraising events that are occurring around the district, and there are dozens and dozens of them in the course of a year. And they're all really important. There's Special Olympics, there's Project Graduation, there's all of our PTO events. There's multiple events in every year at every school. And one of the things that's a common business practice is that you don't use the email system to solicit resources from your either employees or your constituents. And so we're concerned about that because parents have shared their email addresses with us with the intent that we're sharing pertinent educational information with them about their child and their education, or news at the district, official district business. So the other thing, again, is capacity. It takes me a long time to deal with all of the requests that come in, not just responding to emails, but getting the full information and then putting out the phone burst. So I met with the administrative team at our last A-team meeting, and we talked about how could we make sure that we're supporting but not taking advantage of the families that have provided us with their email address and not overburdening our limited staff. And what we decided was that we would make sure that if whatever organization is asking for us to advertise, that they would send a blurb to each of the principals. And we already have official newsletters going out from building principals on a regular basis. And so they would send the blurb to the principal, and there would be a section in every principal's newsletter for events and fundraisers. So parents would get used to knowing that that was going to be a part of their newsletters, and they could go there and check for events going on around the district. And the other thing that we said that we would do is have an icon on our homepage that was for events and fundraisers, so parents could go there and also get any information they need about fundraisers that are going on around the district. What that allows us to do is have the work be put on the person doing the organization, and all we're doing is saying, well, the Wizards are coming on this date, contact this person for more information. So we felt like that was a good compromise. It still allows us to get news out, but it solves that problem, again, of using our email, but it also solves the problem of us putting a bunch of flyers in a student's folder that is intended for their academic work and notes home to parents about what's happened maybe during the day or what's going on in the school. And we also have that concern. The more information we're sending out, the less chance they're going to take it seriously and look at what's in those folders. So we're really trying to balance the needs of the fundraising groups and the organizations that are doing good things for our students in our school district with what we have capacity for and what we feel like our parents want.
And by our public participation policy, it's not an agenda item. So what we can choose is to put it on the agenda for our next meeting. We can choose to refer it to our policy committee, which is what Jess is asking, is that we look at a policy. So we can do either or both of those two things. I would suggest that we start by referring it to our educational policy committee, and then they can decide whether that's an agenda item for our next meeting. Jen?
I know, Jess, you mentioned though the Manifed food drive, it's coming up before our next board meeting, right?
Yeah, it's October 25th, so just in a few weeks.
So I did respond to Amanda Plord, who is working on this project, and I told her I told her I'd put it in my newsletter that's going out this week, and that the principals would as well. She was very concerned because the food supplies are really low right now. So what I told her is we would approve those flyers going out as we're dealing with the other situations, because she said they're pretty desperate for food sources. So I think we're okay with that one. I asked, we made that, I made a contact with the administrators at the end of the day to make sure they were supportive of that, changing, you know, that practice that we have started in, you know, the essence of time, because the essence of time is upon us for that. And so I think we're all set with that situation.
Julie?
I didn't know that there was a spot on the website for fundraisers and stuff, so I may be the only parent that didn't know that, but it would be nice to have a reminder of.
Well, there isn't one yet,
There isn't
right?
one.
Right, that's what we're working on now.
Ah,
That was
yeah.
what the
That's why I
administrative
didn't know.
team, yeah. We have one for our staff already on First Class, our mail system, but we don't have one on the website yet. But that was the problem solving this administrative team did, was to say, you know, instead of looking at different newsletters, they would also like a place where there's one, like a one-stop to go and see a list of upcoming events.
Okay.
And I think I got my question answered. I think you were talking about flyers going home with each child, because when you said initially at the different schools, I was thinking you were talking about advertising within the schools, but you're talking about flyers going out to all students.
Absolutely, and I would expect the other organizations would be the same, but we would target events based on what the target audience is, right? I mean, we can use discretion with that. If we're having a book fair at Elm Street School, we're not seeking to flyer 1,800 students in all these other schools for our book fair. You know what I mean? The food drive benefits children in all 5 schools in our community. So we feel like that's a good example of why we need to have this type of communication. And I would just question too, the newsletters, the principals' newsletters, the timing of those. You know, when do they come out? When do you need to submit information by? You know, the quarterly district newsletter, you know, that isn't clearly communicated, so our little organizations don't know when to submit or who to submit, so they're gonna miss the opportunity if we're not allowed to flyer anymore, which is a really simple way to communicate.
And I think it makes sense for us to, again, depending on how this comes, if the policy committee wants a policy, which, you know, might change this, but it would be easy for us to do a message or something in the newsletter to say, going forward, here's who you would contact, here's the basic information of the, you know, for our newsletter, or Kim Spencer for Minot, you know, and just list the principals and their contact information. So we'd be glad to do that.
Thank you, Jess, appreciate it. Recognition and acknowledgements, and I'll start with Sean Vincent, who's around the corner there.
Just really pleased to share that Erica Swenson, who's a social studies teacher with us, has been selected for this 2015 Understanding Sacrifice program offered through National History Day. I think a lot of you guys have participated, or you've had kids perhaps that have participated in the National History Day project over the last couple of years. And I think she's just a tremendous leader, and she just has this attention to detail, and she loves the National History Day project. She's a true historian. And if you got a chance to look, there's a letter in there that was sent to Tina, and it talks about, you know, these opportunities that she's going to have, where she's going to travel through Northern Europe, England, France, you know, the Netherlands, in next summer, and take a look at, you know, World War II. Some of the sites of the fighting there. There's a lot of work in this for her. She's going to do a lot of writing. It's going to get published and create a lot of curriculum to be shared with other folks. And but it's just another opportunity to get Whittier Middle School out there, and really proud of her. We're lucky to have her. She's an excellent teacher, and I'm really excited for this journey that she's going to go on.
Thank you, Sean, and share our congratulations with her. Thank you. Also like to thank Carly King, who is doing our videoing of our board meetings. Thank you, Carly, we appreciate that. And also, congratulations to Ryan and the birth of his new daughter. So, congratulations, Ryan.
Thank you.
And also wanted to recognize Minot Consolidated School and Kim Spencer and John Hawley for hosting the Optimist Club Bike Rodeo on September 27th. And Kim not only helped sponsor it, but she did all of the events with the kids. They appreciated it, and we did also. And also a thank you to Elm Street School for hosting the Dempsey Challenge. They were a rest stop during the Dempsey Challenge for those bikers that were doing the 50, the 70, and the 100. And also there were many staff members that assisted. So thank you to Elm Street School. And thank you to Poland Spring for raising the $12,000 to help support our sixth graders attending the ecology school at Ferry Beach. And also a huge thank you to our PTOs, our PTA, and our community club, who also contributed $10,000 for our sixth graders who have that residential experience on September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And also a huge thank you to our staff and administration who supported the students there, and Rick stayed with them the entire 3 days. And Rick, did you have something you want to add to that?
I do want to add, actually, really quickly. In addition to the PTO, PTA, community club, there was a private donation that was also made that wanted to remain anonymous, but there was one made. And the ecology school at Ferry Beach themselves were willing to cover $10,000 that we actually were suddenly short last spring. So, you know, no small part of theirs that we were able to do that trip. So,
Thank you to our private donor and also to the ecology school. Moving on to action items, an agenda adjustment, the report of the student representative that is later, that I'm going to move up to now. Emily Whittemore is here, who is our student body president here, and she's going to talk a little bit about that position.
And could we, go to the microphone, Emily? That would be great.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Whittemore. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm the SRB president, which is the student representative body president, which is kind of like president of the entire school, I guess. I just wanted to give a brief update about what's been going on with SRB so far. Most of our energy was immediately focused on homecoming due to the fact that it was very early this year, earlier than it is typical. So we didn't actually have our whole group of SRB members in the beginning, which was a little bit harder to accomplish all the tasks. But I'm happy to say that homecoming went by really well. Everything was a really big success, even with the small amount of members that we had at the time. Our bonfire in particular, every single class ended up making money, which was really fortunate for all of us, because in the past we've either broken even or in some cases lost a little bit of money. And the dance was went really well. Almost half the school ended up coming, which was one of the largest amount of students that we've had at a dance before in the past. We are now turning our attention as SRB to filling other appointments. As you may know, Kylie Martin has decided to step down as a school board representative this year, which leaves us 2 positions to fill. She wanted me to share something with you tonight, which she wrote. She said, "Hello. When I started in my position as a student representative for the PRHS school board, I did not realize how many scheduled conflicts I would have with the meeting dates. Because of my busy co-curricular schedule, I was unable to attend many meetings last year, and I will not be able to attend most meetings this year. Therefore, I am stepping down this year as a representative. Thank you for the opportunity to become more involved with my community. I really enjoyed the insight I got from my experience as a representative." Kylie Martin. She was very sorry to say that she wouldn't be able to attend many meetings this year, but we're looking as SRB to fill 2 more positions, hopefully being a senior and a junior. So the senior kind of has more insight, more wisdom of the school, while a junior can continue on next year and show the incoming junior what to do when they step up. We also have an unexpected VK rep to fill for a student position due to the fact that last year we appointed someone who ended up going to a different school this year. So we're going to do that as quickly as we possibly can. In the meantime, I'm happy to be of service, and I'll be working with Miss Med closely to make sure this school year goes by great. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We appreciate it. And moving on to presentation, and in our strategic plan, we included a goal about the annual state of school reports, and Carrie's gonna present the first one tonight. And in that document, it suggested that they be separate from the budget process. And so we're gonna try to do them at board meetings, and each of the principals will do a separate presentation in terms of their school. Thank you, Carrie.
All right, so I got, it's not a lot of stuff up there, hopefully not a lot of words, except for the, well, I'm a liar on the first one. After that, not a lot of words. So actually, a lot of the data I'm going to share with you, I shared with the faculty in August. Sort of, we did our own little state of the school, how are we doing? So let me give you just, for some of you who've been around for a while, I've presented some of this information to you before. For those of you who are new, it's going to be the first time that you've seen it. But this has been our focus really since 2008. I think, I always try to do the math, I think my first year as principal was 06, 07, I think. And that year was sort of like, sort of like Ryan and Kim probably, like getting your feet under you, what's going on, what are we going to do? So I feel like 08 is when we really started with a plan, or at least I did. So we've been focusing since 2008 on building RTI, academic interventions for students who are not meeting standards and are failing. We have been getting our curriculum consistent across all classes and all kids, all teachers. That was an issue prior to, and I taught here, so I can admit that it was. We had a lot of inconsistency, and that actually, the accreditation process was a great push for us, because that was a really important piece that we didn't have in place, was sort of a written curriculum that we could say, yep, everybody's doing this stuff. So we've spent a lot of time on that. We're in the process now of just updating that as the year goes. We don't have to build it anymore, other than to revise things with new standards. We've been developing common assessments to improve teaching and learning. Teachers have been building those common assessments since 2010. We continue to do that this year, shifting our focus to a proficiency given in response to the law that's coming around the new proficiency diploma, which we'll spend time on that plenty this year. We spent a lot of time in integrating technology. So my second year was when we did the MLTI thing. So this is our third iteration, I think. Or we were in the middle of it that first year, I can't remember. But we switched to iPads last year, and that we did a whole nother ton of professional development on integrating technology. So spent a lot of energy on that. We spent a lot of energy on improving school culture, making sure the kids felt welcome here, making sure that we had a safe building, making sure that kids and adults felt safe here. So that's been a huge focus for the last couple of years. And then beginning last year, to build some more positive behavior work in the building, we've been focusing with the faculty on student engagement. So a lot of our work last year had to do with teachers observing each other to observe for engagement, using some observation tools, collecting data, and then giving teachers strategies to use in their classroom to improve that engagement, and then observing each other to see if we're actually doing them. So that was a really positive thing that we're going to get up and running this year in addition. So we're going to build off of that from last year. Also, school culture things, we've been much more focused on preventative things, mediating student conflicts, mentoring students that we have concerns about, and building on our core values within the building. So, academic stuff is what I'll give you first. So this is the SAT data, and I've been keeping these charts since 2006. So you can't read the words, I'll just tell you. Blue is reading, green is writing, purple is math, yellow is science. Science is not actually part of the SAT. That's a different test that the state of Maine develops. So what you can see is in math in 2000, I think it's 2010, so that's the year it was given. So the kids who took that would have been juniors, which means they would have been the class of 2011. So the dates are funky on each of these because some things are based on class, cohort, seniors, and some are based on the year it's given. So these dates are the year the test is given. So I will be the first to admit, and Tina and I have had this conversation, and I've spent a lot of time talking to my colleagues in the state, principals, struggled to figure out how to move SAT scores, without question. And this is not the first time you guys have heard SAT stuff, before Tina was here, previous superintendents, the whole 9 yards. But we have made some gains over time. You don't see that every year. It's a different set of kids that we look at every year. We've got 1 year's worth of data to try and make sense of it. Writing clearly has not gotten better. It's gotten worse. I will say I did hear from a couple of teachers they knew last year was the last year we're going to be doing the SAT. So my suspicion is we did probably less of the prep that we normally do because we knew we'd be switching to Smarter Balance. And the writing on the SAT is a very specific type of writing that you actually can train kids on. Math and reading is not so much like that. But we've made some updates in the math curriculum that have gotten us some gains that we've sustained over time. We made updates in the science curriculum, same thing, got us some gains, sustained it over time. You know, relatively small gains in reading and certainly not gains in writing. So some successes, but nothing overwhelming, nothing to sort of indicate that, you know, we've found the answer to everything. Certainly very close to the state average is what I would say. This chart I've shared with you before. This actually, my first year as principal, became one of the most important focuses of mine in that first year, which would have been like those really tall numbers, you know? Blue is first semester, green is second semester. Up through the class of 2011, we had as many as 50% of our freshmen failing a class their first year. And that is the primary indicator of a student struggling to complete a high school diploma in 4 years. All the research indicates that if a kid flunks a class in 9th grade, they're at risk. So we had half of our kids flunking a class in 9th grade, flunking more than one class in 9th grade. So it's been a huge focus, which we've made huge gains on. So the last green and blue bar are for this year's sophomores. So this was their 9th grade years. That last set of data that we have is the class of 2017. Similar to when I gave you a heads up on the class of 2013 and the graduation rate and the dropout rate we had some worries about, I would suspect that I may be giving you some heads up about that group as well. They presented challenges to us that the middle school is very aware of. We were very prepared for what they got. The middle school did a great job with them. We've continued to work with them, but it is a group of students that has some particular challenges. But we established 9th grade teams with highly qualified teachers that were handpicked to run 9th grade teams and run them in an efficient and really good way for kids, and it's made a difference. So we sort of snag kids much quicker than we used to. We used to loop and have different sets of teachers doing 9th grade every year, which brought a lot of inconsistency, so that has ended and has paid off. So this is something that many of us in the building, myself primarily, and the people who work hard on RTI are very, very proud of this about this, because this indicates to us that we can make changes and that it comes out and that students are doing better. So that is a huge positive aspect for us. The second one is the graduation rate. If you will look, so again, this is the class of, so the first one is the class of 2006. The most recent data I have is the class of 2013. So we don't have last year's number, okay? That chart gets done in October. We report it to the state, so we'll have that information sometime in January. So the class of 2009 would have been my second year as principal, I think, and that's sort of the low point, 2009. And then I think what's important is that it's an upward trend since then. That even though we've had some inconsistency, that we haven't gotten to that low again, because that was 78% graduation rate, which for me is not an acceptable number. So we are making slow and steady progress on that in terms of students graduating on time, graduating 4 years, leaving here with a diploma, being able to access education beyond the school. So a lot of energy and effort. Leslie Hirschlag is the academic coach who works with 11th and 12th grade students who are on the edge. Maggie Thornton runs the alternative program. She's an excellent, excellent educator, and kids want to be in that program, and it has gotten us a lot of gains in terms of kids finishing. So that's been another area of focus for us. The other area has been the dropout rate. Again, I have data starting in 2006. The state changed the way it calculated prior to this, so it's not really the same number. So that's why I start with 06 each time. So as you can see, steady decline, with the exception of 2013, which is the year I gave you a heads up on. We've seen a steady decline in the number of kids who drop out. Let me just clarify one thing. The graduation rate is about the group of kids who enter as freshmen and stay all the way through 4 years. So it's a cohort is what the state calls that. The dropout rate is of all the kids in the building in that year. So it's not the kids who dropped out from the class of 2013. It's all the kids during the 12-13 school year who dropped out. So so that's out of 520 kids versus the class of 2013, which would have been like 120 kids. All right, so that we've seen a steady decline in that. So going around to school culture, and this is something that, you know, I'm going to give a huge amount of credit. I was going to make Patrick Flynn come tonight, and then that just seemed mean that I would make him come. But he's really responsible for this data. Let me just share with you. So starting in 2010, 2011, which is the year before he began working for us, the total number of kids who were suspended from this building, that is just about 140 kids in one school year. And the total number of days they were suspended for, so this is how many days kids were missing class, was up to close to 400 days. We were not doing what we should have been doing. This is not okay. Those numbers are not okay for kids to be out of school for that amount of time. And I think what Patrick has done is he has, you know, those early numbers represent about 20% of our student population, and we're down to about 8% of our student population that gets a suspension. And it could be just one day, right? The larger ones that are 5 or 10 days are more significant behavioral events. And we still have those, no question, but we're getting it down to a very small group of kids that we can target and try to mediate with them. But Patrick started a mentoring program 3 years ago that he has morphed twice now. Last year and then this year, we have 37 pairs of kids, of older students who are mentoring younger students. We have 2 working with middle school kids. The rest of them are sort of seniors mentoring freshmen or juniors mentoring freshmen, something like that. And they're kids that we're worried about when they come up from the middle school. So we're trying to snag them early, trying to give them a positive experience and another peer within the school who can be useful for them, a sounding board, just to help them make good decisions. The judiciary board is revitalized. That is a student run where kids can be referred for behavioral consequences. Patrick's great at being creative with those consequences. Tony Bennett, who's the maintenance director here, loves kids. Thank God he loves kids, and he will take any kid who needs community service. And it's not just the kid's going to work. Tony's going to talk his ear off, right, about making good decisions, about how to do that, you know. And so it's like this resource that we have that he's not really hired to do, but he loves to do it. It's something that is important to him. So I think this represents a pretty significant improvement on the school culture and sort of how things have been going here. And the school feels, from back in 06 and 07 when I was here, it feels it's a different place. It feels a lot different in terms of how the kids interact with each other and how we all work together. This is information that we get every year. This is the 2- and 4-year college enrollment data. We get this every year from the Mitchell Institute. Every high school in the state of Maine gets it. I've shown this to you before, for those of you who've been around. So we get this, well, it used to come more frequently. Now it comes once a year. But this tells you, of all the kids who graduate, how many of them actually enroll, like in at CM, USM, private college, public college, doesn't matter. How many of them actually go to somewhere? Because they all tell us they have intentions to go, right? It's just whether or not they follow up and do it. So what you will see, this data goes back to 06 again, and the last data point up there is the class of 2013. And we were, by 2009, up to 73% of our kids were enrolling. They're right that fall, right after graduating. And then we crashed, like worse than we've ever been. And we did a lot of soul searching on that. We didn't do anything different here. The economy was crashing, like parents didn't have money. Even last year's group, a lot of them made choices they didn't want to make because there wasn't a lot of aid out there their parents couldn't afford. So we're not sure what's going to happen with that group, but we've been able to climb back up so that the class of 2013, 75% of them actually enrolled their September after their graduation month of June. So for us, this is like, oh, thank God, it's moving in the right direction again, because that crash in 10 was pretty devastating for those of us the guidance department, and this is about the work that happens in Roundtable, where kids are, required to make, to do mock interviews, they're required to write resumes, they're required to fill out a common application. Even if they don't want to send it in to anybody, they got to do one, because we at least want to know that they can if they change their mind, right? So they're all required to complete an application, and that application could be to any post-secondary program. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a college, but we want to know that they've got a plan. And so that work, thankfully, is paying off again for us. And just so you know, the state average for college enrollment after high school is 64%, And the Western Maine average, which is the group we're in, is 61%. So we're doing, now that we're back, we were doing fine up until 09. Now we're back to the numbers that we want to see. Okay, so just some areas of concern for us that we are working on and want to address. This is the second year that the state has given us a graduation rate for those students who have learning disabilities. They haven't given us that information before. And so the last 2 years, we've been 10-15% below the state average in the graduation rate for students who have disabilities. So that's a concern for us. That's a serious concern for us, that group of students is not being successful. So that's something that we're focusing on. And I think we're going to have to look at our programs, and Holly knows that because we've got the proficiency-based stuff. Anyway, we got all kinds of things that we got to work on with that. Obviously, the reading and writing proficiency around the curriculum and discrepancies between boys and girls. Tina addressed that sort of at the opening in August. We're looking forward to the Smarter Balance testing. That'll give us, it's going to be a new set of data. I have no idea what's going to happen, but it'll give us a starting point for work to do next year to sort of be able to figure out what's going on. And in spite of all of our efforts, we still, and I would say probably the other principals would agree, we still have a large number of students who miss a large number of days of school. And no matter what we do, we just can't seem to get them to come. We have an attendance rate that hovers 93%, which is not terrible. But man, the number of kids that represents, that brings it down, is a really small number, but it's a hardcore attendance issue. So that's another thing that we are working on. So just to end, goals for this year: working on developing better in-class interventions when students don't achieve, or if they get it the first time, either end of that spectrum. Going to continue our work on engagement, improving group work in the classroom, teachers when they're doing that collaborative learning, and increasing positive interactions in the classroom. We're working a lot on our grading practices. We have a new grade book that parents will be able to, and kids will be able to log in and see. It's finally working. It's been challenging getting things up and running, but we have that in place, and that'll give us a lot of good data on how students are doing. And then, other than that, we've got graduation policies, got the teacher evaluation system, and all that stuff is there as well. So some of this stuff is policy and, big picture work, and some of it's like what's happening in your classroom and how that's impacting the kids. So that's it.
One question.
Yeah.
What's the attendance rate for the LS students?
What I have is the yearly attendance rate, which is 93.5, something
Same
like
as
that.
the special ed?
No, the attendance isn't broken down by special. It's the graduation rate.
Oh.
That's the one I gave you, right? So the graduation rate for 2013 was about 85%.
Okay.
I think I'm going to guess, I don't remember, the state gave us a number for the special ed population that might have been about 57 or 60%. So it's a big enough gap that it's a cause for worry.
I have a question, Carrie.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that, going back to attendance, that you are working on addressing that small portion of people who have a large. What is your game plan? What are you doing?
Yeah. So Patrick does a weekly report to sort of catch kids quicker than we used to catch them, to see who's hitting sort of 5, 6, 7. I think this is a practice that Sean probably does down in middle school. Instead of sort of getting caught off guard and a quarter of the year, how many days have you missed? We do a lot of parent meetings. We've had success in even just printing the attendance report so parents can see in black and white, oh my God, my kid missed that many days. I mean, I've seen parents sort of not realize it, right? Because it's day by day, oh, he's got a stomach ache, oh, he's got the, and a lot of times they're calling in and excusing them. So it's not even that they're skipping school. It's that they're missing 20 days and all of them are excused and they're following the law and, you know what I mean? But it's still 20 days that they're not in school, right? So some students we know have significant health issues, mental health issues. Those are not the kids we're really talking about because they have lots of plans and lots of supports and all that stuff. It's sort of that next group of kids who miss 15, 20 days, 25, 30 days of school who don't have those kinds of, diagnosed significant issues that we're targeting. And so we do a lot of parent meetings. Patrick does a lot of phone calls. Those are kids that get mentors in a lot of cases, especially if we know coming in from the middle school that they've got attendance issues. The nurse is a part of that plan because sometimes they land with her as part of I don't really want to be in school, I want to hang with the nurse because she's nice to me. So there's a lot of red flags that we try to catch them.
Okay.
And do the best we can. But truancy starts to be an issue in the high school because once kids turn 15, 16, the state kind of cares when it's younger than that. But they, I mean, once they get to us, it's really hard to sort of push on that end of it. Really, really hard.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, our next order of business is to approve the regular meeting minutes of 9/8/14.
Move it.
Wake up, people. That's full lighting.
And we also have the special meeting minutes of 9/22/14.
Move it through them also.
Okay, we have a motion from Steve. Second. And seconded by Annette. Is there any discussion?
So is it one motion?
Yeah.
Yes, he made one motion.
So if I only went to one?
Only half vote.
Partially abstained.
You'll have to decide that issue yourself. Is there any discussion? All right. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstaining?
Raise your hand also.
I'm
We
abstaining.
have
only
two
because I wasn't here.
abstentions, Jack and Scott Tyner.
Tyner.
The acceptance of the financial statement,
Move it, accept.
Steve Holbrook. Motion, a second. Julie Rio was the second.
I got a question,
Steve and Julie.
Tina.
Yes.
Just, looking, school board stipends, we spent $100 all that line.
I don't know, I'll have to look. That's a great question. I'm not, there should not be any stipend yet until December. when you
Page
get-
26.
Okay. Six. I'm trying to see, so school board stipend, I'll just have to ask Wendy about
Yeah,
that.
just curious.
Clearly, there's a mistake, because it probably was supposed to go in the line above or below, and there was a typo, so I'll make sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'll make sure Wendy knows, and we'll check on that for you.
Tina, were there any things that you wanted to call to our attention in that report? or-
Yeah, I just have a few things. I wanted to let you all know that special ed has some overexpended lines, in case you noticed them. That is due just to people being moved around based on where our new student population is, and those are being adjusted, so no concerns on our end about that. And Wendy's written here that they'll be fixed this week. She's in the process of that. I also wanted to mention that in Minot's section on page 4, you'll see the charter school line is overexpended because we didn't budget for any charter schools from Minot. We did, however, budget for them in Poland because that's where they came from last year. So the money's budgeted, it's just not been transferred to that line yet. So again, that's not a concern. If you were wondering why we have no money in there, it's because we had no students in charter schools from Minot last year. The third area, the high school charter schools, we were actually billed for one student going to virtual school, and that was an error. They billed us based on a student saying, I think I'm going here, and the child never did go. And so when we found out that from another source, from the Maine School Management Association, that that's how we were billed, so we checked our records, and in fact, that person wasn't there, so we contacted them for them to reimburse us. And they are supposed to be sending a check on Monday, so we
Yeah.
dealt with that.
Second Monday of next week.
Yes. You should notice that money going back into that line at some point. And then the last information I just wanted to share is in the ESL line, which is on page 24. It looks like no money has been spent out of ESL, when in fact we have a staff member who is 1/3 ESL, and that's Leslie Hirschlag, and we found out that she was being paid out of the wrong line. So again, another transfer. We do have an ELL teacher, and I didn't want anybody to wonder what happened with that position if you noticed there was no money expended. So other than that, everything else is going forward as expected. There are no surprises for us, and we're doing well.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? That is
Unanimous, it looks like?
Sorry.
unanimous? Okay, thanks. No old business. New business, we have resignation.
Let me see. Yes, Sally Plummer, our speech language pathologist, we were very excited. We had a new hire there, and then shortly after she was hired, she got another job and resigned. So we are in the process. Holly, do you want to, have we got any applications yet, or?
We do not have a candidate at this point.
So we're working on replacing that person, and Holly and I talked about if we don't have a candidate soon, we will probably do a contracted services to make sure we are providing the services we need to until we can hire our own employee.
Tina,
Yes.
what's the rate of pay difference when you hire a contracted service?
I don't think so.
You're assuming you'll be paying the contracted services at the same rate?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Or-
I missed the question. No, contracted services probably will cost more than an employee, is my understanding.
Okay, so.
Very hard to, A, find a speech therapist, and B, find one this time of the year.
So I'll repeat this for those of you at home who might be listening. So it's difficult to find speech pathologists, especially this time of year, Holly said, and it is likely to cost more for contracted services. But these are special education services that we're required to provide. So right now I know she has shifted some staff around and they're meeting our legal obligations, but again, you don't want to keep staff stretched too thin for too long, so.
I remember over the years, when you have to contract services, the cost is just astronomical.
Yeah, so, yeah, we are trying to accommodate now, but know that if we don't fill the position in a reasonable amount of time, we will have to try some contracted services.
I just want other people to know that.
Yes,
And
thank
this-
you, Steve.
This is a professional position, so we do need to vote on that resignation to accept it. Do we have a motion?
Oh, we can accept that. That's so moved.
Second. Steve and Mary Ellen.
Yeah, another question.
Any more discussion?
Yeah.
Steve?
Did she sign a contract?
Yes.
So how long are we obligated really to keep her for, we could release her?
So we can, under our contract, we can keep a person for up to 60 days.
Did we?
However, so Holly, I don't know if you spoke on that at all.
On the speech and language
Yes.
contract is 45 days, and we did hold it to that 45-day notice.
Okay. So is she still here for 45
She is
days?
still here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Policies, the first and final reading of the student transportation procedures. If you remember, we talked about this last month after an appeal hearing that we had had. And the only change is on the second page to add to, with the RSU 16, school board gives the superintendent authorization to make an exception to the policy when it's in the best interest of RSU 16 and the family. Now, Tina, if you want to talk a little bit about why we thought that was necessary.
So we've had some situations where there's an obvious advantage to the family and also to the RSU to make exceptions that, again, benefit the district and also the family. And the way the policy was written before, we had to deny those, knowing that the board would likely overturn them. An example of an extension that fit that situation was Poland, the town line for Poland and Mechanic Falls goes down the middle of a road. We're picking up a student on one side of the road, and the policy saying you can't pick up a student in another town, which is right across the street from where we're already stopping. So that's the kind of exception that we feel like it makes sense. The board would support it, and we feel like it doesn't make sense to pull a transportation review committee together to make decisions that are obvious to administration. So with this exception will allow us to do that, and I think it's written in there, if not, it was what we talked about last time, was that anytime an exception is made, I will report out to the Transportation Committee what the exception was, so the board is kept apprised if exceptions are made.
I don't think it is in here. I think that's the only change.
So we will, that will be our practice, that every time that there is an exception, the Transportation Committee will get an update from me.
So do we have a motion?
So moved.
Steve, and a second? Annette? Okay. Any questions? Do you have one, Jack, or
No,
something?
no.
Anybody? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? That was unanimous. And I will send that around so we can sign it.
It's okay, I've been coughing too. I'll share.
Administrative reports, which are in your packet, and there were two, Kim's and Jenny's were on the table. And I guess I would like to thank administrators for the information on how the early release days were being used. That was part of everybody's report, and I think that's important information. And I would also encourage you to include that same information in your newsletters. Let's see. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add about administrative reports? I had a couple of questions. I had one for Holly. We talked about the state performance indicator and where we had scored, which was needs assistant level 1. Are there any steps that we're required to do because of that? Can you come down and maybe answer in the... Because it looks like that's a fairly good performance rating, right?
It doesn't sound that way, but it isn't bad.
Well, that's what it sounded. There's two
Yeah.
others under it.
Right,
so-
yes. So there was nothing laid out yet in their letter about what type of support they might provide, but usually it's some level of support, usually pretty minor intervention.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Let's see what else. Oh, I had one for Sean. Is he still hiding around the corner there? Last year, when you talked to us about the 5K,
Yes.
there were some things that you said if we wanted to, we could help in terms of, I remember it was sneakers, there are some other things that,
We're raising money now. We've put out a call to businesses, local businesses, saying if they want to contribute $100, we'll put it on the back of our T-shirts, and we do use that money. We have a number of kids who don't have sneakers to run, so we go purchase those for kids who need them. We also buy refreshments for the event. You know, it's a celebration. We've been getting the kids out on a couple times a week. 7th grade goes out a couple times a week. 8th grade goes out a couple times a week to the track. And a lot of them choose to walk, but they're moving, you know, and I think that's a start. We have some kids who run the whole time we're out there for, 20 minutes, and that's fantastic. But we're really just trying to keep our kids active. And then we celebrate at the end. We bring family in, and we're really pushing this across the district this year. I'd love to get a huge group. So if people want to contribute and buy a pair of sneakers, I won't say no. We have kids who need it. But we're trying to be creative and see what we can do to really make this a special event. Been very grateful to Minot for hosting it on their trails. It's a great racetrack for the kids too.
thanks. And Kim, I noticed you've got a lot in yours. I wonder if did you want to talk a little bit about, you've got some pretty big items there, the facility review committee and
Yeah, sure.
summer school maybe?
Okay.
A little update on those two?
Sure. So we
had our first meeting of the Facilities Review Committee on September 29th, which was a Monday. And what we did at that meeting was to share some information and data with the committee members. And that data included things like, what does the current overcrowding at Bruce Whittier Middle School, how is that impacting learning, basically? What does that actually look like as far as spaces for classrooms, for common areas? How is that infringing upon the high school, because the middle school is currently using some high school spaces? We also talked about enrollment data, so I got the number of live births from each town over the past several years, and then we looked at our current enrollments to project out what that looks like, and basically it looks like our enrollments are holding pretty steady. We also talked about the fact that there are a couple of housing projects in Poland that are on the table for consideration. One is going to be about 50 units, and the other one we're anticipating will be older families moving in, but you can't be sure until that happens. And that could be an additional number of units. And it's usually figured that 2 children per household or per unit. So 50 units could mean an expected average of 100 new children coming into the district. So we looked at all of those factors and then asked questions and determined what we need to know more about. What information do we need to take our next steps? And so Tina and I are working with colleagues to come up with a request for proposals from an architectural firm, and we know what we want from that firm. We want to find out what would it look like if we added additional freestanding portables. What would it look like if we added additional portables with some kind of enclosed walkway that would make them more secure, just basically safer? What would it look like if we did an actual addition onto the current facility now? And then I'm sure that there's another one, which is, yes, thank you. What would we want to actually do a full district look that would consider possible grade reconfiguration? So, for example, would we want to look across the whole district and say maybe the middle school would become 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, for example, and what would that look like? So we want to have all of that information in front of us. So that's where we are at this moment. Did that cover you think?
That does. And my question around summer school was,
Yes.
a couple of years ago, we made some changes because of budgetary things. Do you anticipate that when we go into the budget process that we'll be looking at the same kind of configuration for summer school, or were there some things that didn't work as well, or did, or?
Great question. So summer school is really 16 days. And so what we're finding is that we're feeling like it's really good for those students who participate. Some of the challenges that arise include children not participating in all of those days, and because it's only 16 days, if you miss 4 of those days, right, you've missed 25% of the experience. We're also looking, Linda Bernier, who leads our summer school program and does a wonderful job with that, is looking to get some academic data for us for me to share next month. We do know, though, it's, again, with the 16 days, looking for assessments that will really show a growth between the beginning and leaving is a little bit challenging because it's not a lot of time. However, I believe teachers would say this is definitely wonderful. It stops backward slide, and it helps some students move ahead. This particular year, summer school had a lot of sorrow to it because of the tragedy in our district, and so we had some outside people in to support staff and students, and our guidance counselors came together also to support staff and students. But I think unfortunately, that's our big sad memory from that time.
Thanks. Any questions about any of the other administrative reports? Okay. We've already had our report of the student representatives, so our subcommittee reports, facilities and transportation. Karen, Kim, was there anything you wanted to talk about in terms of that committee?
Yes.
Hi, Kim.
Hi.
How are you?
Are you okay if I go with this?
Run it.
Okay.
You're doing such a great job. I don't want to stand in the way.
Thanks, Karen. All right. So we recently had a chance to access what was our old VFA data. And that is data that the state required districts to keep, and it had 2 parts to it. One part is the capital renewal side, which means every single physical structure has a life expectancy. So you can expect your windows and PCS to last you this many years, and you can expect the flooring to last this many years, and the carpet and the lighting. You get the idea, right? So it's all the capital renewal. The other side of that is things that will have to be updated to meet code, or things that are going to become outdated or break early, and how that has to come to meet requirements and code. So there are two parts of that. The state is not maintaining that database any longer, and the last data that we have for our district is from 2011. So we have some good data from then, but it has not been updated since that time. Gary Purrington and I have already met twice or three times now to take a look at that data to see what has been updated, because that data actually tells you what's going to have to happen in the next 10 years. So it's going to really inform our budget process this year around facilities. We're taking a look at that to see what we've updated and figure how we're going to move forward, because it's an invaluable resource to us, even though it has not been updated, as far as knowing what we're going to need to invest in our structures to keep them safe and running well.
Okay, thanks. Personnel and Finance, Mariella?
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I might have a confession to make, and maybe I'm forgetting, but Mariella, I don't know if I ever sent you the minutes to that meeting. So if not, and you want me to review, I would be glad to do
Sure,
that,
if
or
you
hand
could.
them down to you.
Yes, because I don't remember.
Okay, so I think you don't remember because you never received them.
Well, actually, I took the minutes, but I sent them to you, but I didn't look at them again.
Okay, all right, so I'll only take half of the blame, or maybe 3/4. Whoops. So for the Personnel and Finance Committee, we talked about food service financials, and one of the issues that we have talked about is that we are getting, or we have received, the board has recognized this in the past, that sometimes we get conflicting information from the state or food service director of what money we have coming in compared to what our audit is showing us. And it looks like that's the case again, where we could be, have a deficit in our food service as much as $60,000. And that's for last year. It's already been paid for, so it's part of our financials from last year. But again, it's a concern for us, and I've spoken to the auditors that we need some clarification about why we're getting a certain number from one group of, or one part of the organization, and they have different information for us. Of course, I believe the auditors because they're doing a thorough review of everything that comes in and goes out. So I have been working with Betty Hayes, our food service director. She is working with Wendy Ritchie, our finance director, on a monthly basis to try to figure out where that discrepancy is and how to make sure that the issue is noticed ahead of time and adjustments are made, so we don't get to the end of the year and have a deficit that's greater than what we expect. And the auditors will be prepared to talk with us about that when they come for their audit report, because I've specifically said the board and I need a little bit more understanding of why there has been a discrepancy. But I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. And again, it was covered in last year, so it's not a current budget issue, and we had plenty of money left over, but we don't want to be in this situation every year. So we either need to budget differently, and I will remind you is that the RSU had always put in $40,000, and when Mr. Wilhelm was here, he cut it to 20 or 15. He cut it to 15, and of course we're still needing more. So it may be that we need to budget the 40 that had always been budgeted before, because clearly they're having difficulty staying within the 15 to 20 that has been budgeted in the last few years. And I will say it's not uncommon for food service to need money from the district. That's common across the state. And what I've been told is if you're a high needs district with 75, 80, 90% free and reduced lunch, they can usually break even or keep the financials in good standing. But when you're kind of in the middle like we are, you get less less subsidy for those things, and that, again, it is challenging. So I don't think it's anything unique for our district, but I did want everyone to be aware.
We charge the state maximum on the rates?
I don't think we're doing the maximum. I think we're doing the minimum, but I would need to check into that. I would need to ask Betty for that
You're
information.
losing $342 a day.
Yeah, that's significant.
Over 5 schools,
Right, and how is that compared to the average? And again, yeah, you want to keep the cost of a lunch reasonable for
kids can
families,
eat.
but I think we are at the minimum, but I may be wrong, and I would want to verify that before having that go on, assuming that's accurate. So that was one thing. We also talked about staff survey responses, so the board put out surveys based on the strategic plan and looking for progress that we've made since last year when we worked on the strategic plan, and they were overwhelmingly positive. The big areas that we got feedback was retaining excellent staff, and again, that came back to staff feeling like our salaries were not up to the standards of the local areas. Of course, we're in the middle of negotiations, so we are working on that. And then I think that was the only major one that we got about 30 responses from staff members saying they felt that we needed to have a little bit more competitive. And let me just see if there was anything else. I think that was it. We did have great responses from our staff. We had trying to think 150 surveys, and we have, I'm trying to think, maybe 156 teachers, and most of our responses were from teachers. So. And then the last thing, exit interviews. I did share the data with the board that we had 10 to 15 different staff members fill out exit surveys, and 3 people reported that they were leaving for better pay. One person reported it was a $16,000 raise they got to go to another district, and again, that was a position in Portland. We clearly, aren't trying to compete with that. Another person said $11,000, and they went to Cape Elizabeth. So there, when people are going south, it's tough for us to compete. 4 people stated they were moving to be closer to home, and 1 person was moving out of state. So proximity was the biggest reason people were leaving the district. And that's it.
And Mariella was elected as chair of that committee again. Mariella.
Congratulations.
And so the only committee that we have left is, in terms of determining chair, is the Facilities and Transportation, and we'll put that on the agenda for that committee next month. So Jack, Educational Policy.
Ed Policy, we followed up. We basically had 2 meetings last month in preparation to get ready for Craig Freshley. We had the first meeting with him to kind of discuss what we're going to do as a board on the 18th, some things to reflect on, so that we're ready for that. We discussed the staffing surveys, the staff and community surveys, looked at the results again. As Tina said, they really were positive, so that gives us kind of a benchmark to see how we've done with the strategic plan so far. And it's something that Craig had mentioned we would want to definitely watch that trend to see how we're doing, so it's a good benchmark for us. We talked about some things that we'll need to include in the policy, in the strategic policy, some things that weren't there before, such as proficiency-based diploma that we'll need to add into the strategic plan. So more monitoring, more evaluation to come. We'll meet again on the 18th with Craig.
Okay, thanks. So, report of the board chair. You got a board survey. Steve, did you get one?
No.
Okay.
I just asked Tina, but what that was.
All right. It was emailed to us, so if you have email,
Well, I tell you what, hell's gonna freeze over before I get email.
I do know that, and we
What
will
did he
one
get?
too.
The
He
survey?
didn't get the survey.
Oh, okay. I will check with, Lauren usually sends those out to you, but there have been some things going on, so I will make sure you get a copy.
And if you could send it back to Tina. Okay.
We're gonna close the survey on Wednesday, the electronics, but I will make sure you get one, and we'll
Okay.
we don't need to, when you get yours and you send it back in, we will make sure it's included.
Annette said she didn't get one either,
No,
right?
because I don't use the school email. So
Okay.
I'm gonna
board
send it to her
email,
right now.
I
Oh,
used
all
to
right.
choose to forward stuff
I got it.
to
All
me.
right,
Okay.
thanks,
So
Erin.
It didn't.
So you should have received that, and if you haven't completed it, please complete it, because we're going to use that on the 18th to identify goal areas, but also to kind of assess progress, and it will certainly be helpful at that workshop. And that workshop, again, is Saturday, October 18th from 9 to 12, and it's in the conference room at the Poland Fire Station. So,
This is 8:30.
is it? Does it?
It does.
I had written 9, maybe.
8:30 to 11:30.
Oh, 8:30 to
Yeah.
11. Let me check. I've got.
I can't remember.
We'll send out a clarification on that.
So we're not meeting here, then we're meeting at the
We're
Poland
meeting.
Fire.
Yep, we're meeting over at the conference room. And how do you get? Is it?
So if you walk in the main door into the fire you'll see that they have like a lobby area. It's right there on your right. It's not hard to find.
And the agenda for that day is that we will start by reviewing the community and staff survey and the board survey. And then we'll look at the strategic plan and look at it by goals and objectives. And we have people that will be assigned to each of them. I'll do the presentation on the governance part, but do you want to talk about how the other ones are going to be divided? You're going to do some and Kim is doing some.
Yeah, I will be doing the student and the community sections, the staff and the community sections, and Kim will be doing the student and the facilities or operations section. Yes. Oh, yeah, so it's the opposite, sorry. I will be doing the student section and community, and Kim will be doing the staff section because that's primarily professional development, which is her responsibility.
So
and then also the facilities.
So we'll be talking both about the assessment and then the revision as we go through those. And then the last thing we'll talk about is how we deal with the strategic plan as an ongoing process for keeping it alive. So that's our agenda for that morning. As you know, there's still an open seat on the board. Poland does have 3 candidates that are interested that will be interviewed by the selectmen, so we're hopeful that we will have the seat filled by our next meeting.
I think that the interviews are happening tomorrow.
Good, good. And then in our packet, there was some information from the MFMA conference, which is October 23rd and 24th. There was also, we received the resolutions from the Maine School Board Association, and they have resolutions this year on Common Core, student transfers, and charter school funding. Last year, Joe was our representative to the delegate assembly that talks about the resolutions. If there is anybody going, we do have a form we have to fill out. And also in that were some nominations, if we as a board wanted to make nominations for awards. And Tina and I kind of looked at that a little late, but I'm thinking next year we may want to think about people that have really supported our kids and our community and our schools and make some of those nominations.
And is there anybody here that's planning on going to that? Scott's planning on going, okay, maybe Mary Ellen. That just helps because I will make sure I find you and connect with you while we're there. It's a good experience to learn a little bit more together.
Okay, and on to
me?
Your report.
So just wanted to share that we had a $3,000 donation from Jim Pittman to our 3 elementary schools. They got $1,000 each. And his goal was that that money would be used to support students in need. So if we have students who need a pair of shoes or a winter coat or school supplies, that schools would have that money, and the principals and the guidance counselors will be overseeing how that is spent. And so we're really grateful for that donation, and shared that we always have students in need. So having that additional money and clear guidelines on how he would like that utilized is a great benefit for our students. So I just wanted the board to know of that. He wasn't looking for any recognition, but I think it's great when we can share our good news and supportive community members with our board. We have some new staff hires. We have Lita Keene, who's in Ed Tech 3 at PCS, Erin Hatchie, Ed Tech 3 at Elm Street School, Jennifer McNally, Ed Tech 3 at PCS, Vanessa Kilbreth, Ed Tech 2 at PRHS, Carolyn Kennison, Food Service Assistant at PCS. Oh no, this could be a bad pronunciation. William Kokonen? Cahonen. A trip and bus driver, sorry, to William. And then Cindy Geiger, who is a van driver and bus monitor for the district. So we've got some great new hires. We're really pleased because these are, of course, all positions that are essential, and we've been working hard to fill the open positions.
How many ed tech positions do we have open now?
We have 4 left. Four positions still open, so numbers are,
But very few applicants at this time of the year.
yeah.
One question I've had from the community is any information or updates about a gate. We approved it to be paid for, but
Yeah.
they hadn't really heard what progress we had made.
So we have not had any candidates for the gate position that have the endorsement that's required by the state. So if, so we are, again, continuing to advertise and have been, I was in contact with UMF to talk about the shortage in those positions. That's listed as a position that is a hard-to-fill position statewide, so we're not alone in that struggle. If, so in situations like with a classroom teacher, if you can hire a person with a conditional certificate, in GATE they don't have such a thing as a conditional certificate, so if you hire somebody without the endorsement, you don't get any subsidy for that person. And so we're just really hoping we can get somebody with that endorsement, and we're holding out a little bit longer and hoping for that. And again, keep advertising and keep trying, but right now we haven't had any luck in that position.
Do we do background checks in all these hires?
Yes, everyone goes through the same process where we check references, we do background checks, and we're pretty strict with our process.
I'll tell you why later.
Okay, thank you. So then we just had some updates. One of the things we've been talking about enrollment. So our October 1st date has come and gone. We have until the 15th to submit those dates to the state. And so I've got preliminary information that I wanted to share with you. Just find it. We have 1,771 students enrolled as of October 1. Last year we had 1,806, so there's about 35 students left. But the report that shows the 1,806 had the 12 Fiddlehead students, the one student we had in Gould, and the one we had in Hebron. So the 1,771 I don't think includes those particular students. So we're down a little bit, not a lot. Of course, every student is a loss of subsidy, so you don't want to have any decrease in your enrollment. But we do have a slight decrease. I wanted to share one of the questions last time. I said we do have superintendent's agreements, and so one of the board members asked me to share where, which school students are leaving from and where they're going. So I did review the data on that. We have 43 students have superintendent's agreements to come into the RSU. 7 students are coming into Bruce Whittier, 5 into Elm Street, 6 into Minot, 18 into PCS, and 7 into PRHS. So they're coming into all of our schools, and there's the PCS is the school that receives the most superintendent's agreements to come in. And they're coming from all of our area schools. 21 students came from SAD 17, 12 from Auburn, 5 from Lewiston, 2 came from Hebron, which I'm not sure that's why that's not included in the RSU 17, 2 from Gray, and 1 from Casco. And then we have 30 students going out to other districts. So again, we have a positive of 13 students, which is always great. We have 5 students that are leaving, going away from Bruce Whittier, 5 from Elm Street, 5 from Minot Consolidated, 6 from PCS, and 9 from Poland Regional High School. So again, numbers are pretty consistent across the board of 5 students at our smaller schools and between 6 and 9 at our 2 larger schools.
Is that just kids that are going elsewhere? Or did you say superintendent's agreement?
Yeah, the first number, the 43, was people that were coming from other districts to us.
Right.
And the 30 going out are where they were leaving from, to show that, I was trying to see, I think the question was, which schools do we have kids leaving or coming to? And there's no, big red flag anywhere that, a lot of students from one school are leaving, or, from one, I guess PCS is the one school that most are coming from. Yes.
When you do an agreement, do you ask why they're leaving us, and is there a common theme to those 30 that are leaving?
So what the state requires is that the parent write a letter to both superintendents and let them know why they feel it's in the best interest of the child to go somewhere else. And the area superintendents have a pretty open agreement that we are approving. If parents feel like it's in the best interest of their child, either they, it's, you know, like a lot of times if a teacher works in the district, they bring their children in, and we always approve those because it makes it convenient for the parent and the child. Sometimes it's that they don't feel like it's a good fit in the school. They might feel like there's a class that the child doesn't get along with his peers. They may feel like another school has you know, like better options for certain things. But typically it has to do with fitting in, that they think it'll be a better environment somewhere else.
Okay. So now that I hear him talk and you talk some more, I'm waking up again. So this just included what there are for incoming and outgoing superintendent agreements?
Yes.
Not the students that are going to private schools or anything like that have
Correct. We also have, we do have 15 students at charter schools. 2 of them are from Minot, 2 from Mechanic Falls, and 11 from Poland. We had, I think I had one other number I was going to share with you. We have 3 students that are tuitioned in from Raymond for us. That's part of their town charter, that they can have some school choice. So we do have 3 students that tuition in. We have 1 student that's tuitioned out to Gould, and that's part of a town agreement from Minot, consolidated.
And then the St. Dom's and the Hebron Academy kids aren't included in that?
No, they're not included in that, and I don't have numbers for that because parents can choose, you know,
Right.
you can choose to send them to a private school and
yeah.
have it registered. I believe I could find those numbers, but I don't have them tonight.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say, me too.
Yeah. Yes. So I just wanted to give a little bit update on enrollment, and I was going to ask Kim to talk a little bit about our recent oil bid.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if
Good
you
news.
don't, yeah.
Yes. All right, so we bid out every single year on things like wood chips for the biomass burner at the high school, and also for fuel oil, right? So we use about 60,000 gallons a year of fuel oil. We opened the bids this past week, and we got a good deal. We were going to have a fixed price with CN Brown at $2.92 a gallon. Last year, I asked Wendy to pull the figures on because we had a variable rate, and I asked her to pull the figures so we could see what the average per gallon price was we paid. Last year, we paid an average across the 60,000 gallons of $3.25 a gallon. So this change would reflect a savings of $20,000 over this year, which is fantastic.
And do you also want to say a little bit about the building committee?
Yes, so we met for the first, I'm kidding. All right, so I forgot, what I forgot to say about the building committee was that we currently have 1 community member from Mechanic Falls. Dave Griffith is on that committee. We would really love to have a community member from Poland as well as 1 from Minot. We just think that would make it just a little bit more rounded out for us. So I'm putting it out there to everyone to please consider that if you're willing to do it. We set a series of dates, but what we realize is we're going to need more information before we meet again. So I don't think the time commitment, at least right now, is going to be overly heavy. That could change, but we really would like to have thinking from all 3 towns as far as community members go. So
I had a couple of questions from talking to people in the community to see if they would volunteer for the position. And in talking to 2 contractors, they were interested, but worried that if they were on the committee, they wouldn't be able to put a bid in for the job. If they came to that
yes.
point.
Yeah. So that's, well, what we want, I mean, we want people with some background.
Well, and that's the
Yeah,
thing, they're
right?
like, well, we've got, expert,
background in this,
but
right.
we want to be
some
able to
kind
do
of
it too.
conflict.
So I would,
Our nepotism policy talks about hiring an employee. It doesn't talk about committee membership, but.
yeah, and what I would say is if we got to the point where I mean, the part of it is the work to talk about, what it is we need and what, what is
Help
our
paint the
proposal
picture,
going
yeah.
forward. So I think that someone could be part of those discussions and their participation might end at a certain place if they were going to bid on something.
Right.
But it's like anything else. If you've got a local business, you're just one of a small. This isn't a decision-making committee. The board is that.
Right.
So even if they were going to bid, they wouldn't be part of the deciding factor of whether their bid was accepted. So
I don't think that was the issue. They were just worried about, well, if somebody else sees me or
Yeah.
sees their name on, part of the decision-making process, that if they were there.
Hey, and Turner, they got selectmen bidding on mowing roads and stuff.
I know.
Get approved.
But, you know,
I'd call that a conflict of
there's
interest, and they don't.
conflict of interest all over the place.
Yes.
But anyway,
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank Is that it on your end?
everything else.
Okay. So, and I just wanted to give the board an update. Our Superintendent Advisory Council, which you all were supportive of us starting so that we could get some face-to-face communication with staff members, has already met this year, and they're doing some great work. We had some a goal for us to set our like priorities for the year, and it was really interesting as I worked with them because they really are thinking district-wide, which is what we wanted, and so they were saying, well, we'd really like to work on student-led conferences because that's something that impacts pre-K teachers all the way through 12th grade, and we'd like to, you know, develop some supports or training tools for teachers that are new or maybe ones that have been here a while but don't feel really comfortable with the process they have. So we're working on frequently asked questions and a little document about our philosophy and why we do student-led conferences. And they also wanted to talk about RTI, response to intervention, and do we have a systemic approach to that? So do we have some interventions in place at K-6 that then build them into similar types of interventions at the middle school and high school as they make sense? So that, again, was, I thought, a great idea, and they were talking, or we were talking as a group, that if there are some recommendations for how we want to proceed with RTI that impact the budget, they could be a group that talks about what recommendations they'd like us to put forward in the budget. And again, they have access to teachers, they're all in the classroom, so they can bring forward ideas from us from the field, which is what we certainly want. And then the other thing that they were talking a lot about is how we deal with behavior, and saying it's the same thing. Kindergarten through 12th grade, we're all dealing with challenging behaviors these days, and do we have some practices in our elementary schools and middle school and high school that are consistent so that students are growing and realizing that there are similar expectations as they go up through the system. So those are all kind of priorities that they want us to talk about as a committee that we can then take back to the administrative team, but also that they can take back to teachers. So I think this committee is going to work really well together. I'm really pleased with the ideas they have so far and their willingness to communicate with the administration about what staff in their building are looking for and to kind of be that liaison for us. So that committee has met, and then the last thing on here was we do have some resignations we wanted you to know about. Megan McNally has resigned as ed tech at Elm Street School. Tammy McCarthy, pre-K aide at PCS, and Marilyn Morris, food service at PCS. And then again, the last few things.
Do you want to share some? You want
Yeah.
to share this?
So, for those of you who may or may not have seen it, on Sunday, there was an article in the Portland Press Herald about RSU 16 and consolidation. They called me a couple of weeks prior to because they were doing they were doing a big article about just consolidation in the state in general. And I think it's possible we might have been one of the few districts that have had a pretty positive experience with consolidation, seen some academic achievement increasing over time, but also some savings in our budgets. And they put in there, you know, going from the 21.8 million prior to consolidation to, you know, about 18 million after the year after consolidation. And because we've had, you know, pretty good relationships with the towns and also with, as a board, you know, a unifying goal, they ended up having a full article about RSU 16, and it's in your packet. So if you haven't read it, you definitely should. I thought it was pretty positive. And I told Mary, just as a disclaimer, I don't typically fold my arms, cross my arms in pictures.
I thought you looked pretty tough.
I was forced into that stance, and I think they might have thought the superintendent didn't look quite tough enough in her natural stance, so they...
Standoffish.
Yes, I was like, I wouldn't normally stand this way, and he said, oh yeah, this is a good picture, so I was coerced into that. I did want to give you an update on Skip Crosby, our Teacher of the Year finalist. Skip was not chosen as the Teacher of the Year for the state, but we have let him know that we feel like he definitely is Teacher of the Year in our minds and hearts, and we're really proud of how he represented us. So he ended up in the Final Four, as you probably can, you might remember. And of course was the Androscoggin Teacher of the Year. So we were represented well right to the end, and that was really an exciting process. So we're really proud of Skip.
I would just add to that, I was asked to be part of the interview committee when they came to visit the school. And I was with the parents, and they all talked about very specific instances in which he had supported their child. They talked about his commitment to the high school, to their children. I just can't say how impressed I was by what the parents had to say and what Skip is doing for our kids, so it was great.
So, and then the last thing, I just wanted to give you a heads up, I don't need to talk about this too much, but we, our school calendar has to be in alignment with our regional tech center. And the way that has happened over the last couple of years is we've agreed to transport students whenever we're off the calendar. And that was approved last year, but this year we got notice that it wasn't approved, and then superintendents got together and worked with the state to get a one-year agreement that we could continue to transport on days we're off, but next year we will have to be in alignment for a calendar. So I just want you to know I had to sign my name away saying that we were in agreement that we would be in alignment next year. And so that, of course, impacts a variety of things like when student-led conferences can be held or other things like that. So it's challenging, and we no longer have local control over our calendar in a sense.
I was going to say, what difference does it make to the state if we support them?
So the problem in the past was that if you had students going to the technical center, when we didn't have school, kids weren't there. Or if they had school and, vice versa, it made it difficult because the attendance was a problem.
Okay.
So we solved that by saying we will provide transportation on any day the tech center's open that we are not. But they still want us to be the same, even though we're all in agreement on making sure transportation's available and that students are there every time it's open. So, yeah, it's just made it a little bit more challenging for us, and we will work out those issues as a region, but we will not have some opportunities to have flexibility in that schedule next year. And that's it for me.
Okay, do we have a motion for
So
adjournment?
moved to adjourn.
Steve, and do we have a
I'll
second
second
for
you.
that? And Annette, second. All those in favor? Thank
I
you.
don't think you'll find anyone vote no.
What do we want?
And then Julie heard it with a good hearty call.
I know.